Will Levis looked rough at Titans practice on Wednesday, and it's best for the Titans and Levis if he gets a fresh start. I'll break it down on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, on today's show, we're going to continue breaking down Tennessee Titans OTAs from this week. On yesterday's show, we talked about Cam Ward, the receivers, the folks who didn't show up, and we'll have another update on that as well. But today, I want to look at Will Levis's rough day, both on and off the field. Also talk about some of the defensive and special teams battles that we didn't get to hit on yesterday, like inside linebacker, Femi Oladejo, and kick and punt returners. Then we're going to talk with Easton Freeze from A to Z Sports about his article on Cam Ward using virtual reality, just like Jayden Daniels did last year, to help speed up his development. So a lot to discuss to finish the week here on Locked On Titans. Before we dive in, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. There's a reason this is the number one Tennessee Titans podcast in the world. Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round and always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one because it may be the off season for the Titans, but there is no off season here on Locked On Titans. On Monday's show, I'm going to go over part one of my 53-man roster prediction. I'm going to do offense. The next day, I'm going to do defense. Can't wait to dive into that and have those discussions with you guys. But with that being said, again, just a rough day for Will Levis, taking all things into account. And again, I mean on the field and off the field. Now, on the field, just at practice, we got reports that he finished the entire practice. The last play of practice was Will Levis throwing a pick six to defensive back Mark Perry. Out route, little late. Perry makes a play, probably takes it down the sideline. Not only that, but earlier, there was another almost pick a couple of plays before that in team drills with Will Levis, according to reports. So, picking up right where you left off, Will Levis. And again, I do feel for Will Levis in a way here. It's a tough situation for him, and he mentions that later. But at the end of the day, this is exactly why the team made the decision that they made. This is exactly why Cam Ward was drafted. This is exactly why the team gave up on Will Levis. It just never ends. Even when he's going against, a lower team of defensive players, he still just can't help but make these bad plays. It's just, he has all the talent in the world. We've talked about it ad nauseum at this point. He's got the arm talent. He's got a quick release. He's got the prototypical size that you want from an NFL quarterback. He just can't put it all together. The mental side of things just won't let him take full advantage of his physical gifts. And we see it again, literally just one practice. And like I talked about yesterday, one practice doesn't mean good or bad either way. But when we've seen diabolical turnovers from Will Levis for an entire season that literally killed the team in multiple games, especially early in the year, it's hard not to be like, same old with Will Levis. Now, again, I mentioned this yesterday, but according to Jim Wyatt, it's fair to assume that Cam Ward and Will Levis got the most reps. Now, that's what I was calling for all along, and I think that needs to continue. But at some point, if Will Levis just keeps throwing picks and not have, and listen, there were other reports out there that said Will Levis was decisively faster and he was getting the ball out of his hands quicker than we saw last year. Like, there were reports that say that. But, it's classic Will Levis. We'll see him get he gets rolling. He gets a couple of quick completions, getting the ball out of his hands. And then when things don't go so well, that's when the mistakes happen. So, a rough performance. But again, it's not just on the field for Will Levis coming out of practice. It's off the field as well. And that's what I'm more wanting to discuss when we talk about why I still think Look, I want the Titans to develop Will Levis. I want them to get the most they can in a trade out of Will Levis. I've been consistent throughout the offseason. After the Cam Ward pick was decided, Will Levis needs to be traded before week 1. Now, if he's going to be there until whenever, then you got to develop him. But it was hard looking at Will Levis during his interviews yesterday. Will Levis has always been a guy, and I think this may be an issue with his game and his personality, is he wears his emotions on his sleeve. And you don't necessarily want your quarterback to do that. Now, I loved that Will Levis showed emotion. I said that on this show a million times. I loved how fired up he'd get, and at Miami screaming and all that stuff. Like, I love that stuff because, quite frankly, that's my personality. I'm fired up. I'm excited. I show my emotions. I'm always reared and ready to go. Like, I have coffee in my blood. I don't need to drink it. So I identified with that. I'm like, man, this is awesome. Guy kind of, has my personality. Now, obviously, we're reaching. If I met Will Levis in real life, we're different. But I'm just saying there are guys and football players who have certain personality types that you gravitate to because it reminds you of your style. So I wanted Will Levis to succeed, but the other side of that is when he's down, it's obvious. And I think that hurts his teammates because when he gets down, they feel that. And then, it trickles down. That's how leadership works. And when you're the quarterback, that's a big issue. But we saw it in this interview at practice. Like, it was, quite frankly, it was sad for me to watch Will Levis do that interview after practice. So I'm not going to quote Will Levis verbatim here, but he essentially said, I think it was an off-field interview with Teron Davenport, or there were a lot of media people videotaping it, but he basically said that everybody who's been in his situation knows that the situation sucks. He literally said that. My situation sucks. He said he's going to continue to have a positive mindset, and I thought this one was interesting, and play QB when I'm asked. He said that he already processed the emotion of the situation long before Cam Ward got picked because he knew that Cam Ward was going to be picked. And I guess, again, you watch the interview, you hear about the pick 6. I want the Titans to develop Will Levis to a point where they can get a draft pick out of him, whether it's because of his preseason performance or there's an injury or something like that. But at the end of the day, I don't know that Will Levis has as tough of a spirit as Malik Willis. And Malik Willis just kind of hung in there. They brought in Will Levis. They put him down at the end of the depth chart. They made it pretty clear they wanted Mason Rudolph at the backup, in my opinion. And Malik Willis just kept positive, kept his faith, which is a big part of who he is as a person. And he got better. I'm not as convinced that Levis can rally emotionally and just fight through it and do his best. I'm less convinced of that now than I was before I saw that interview and everything that came out of, Wednesday's practice. I'm less convinced on that. So I think it would be unwise to just cut Will Levis entirely. The Titans shouldn't do that. They should find some way, even if it's a conditional 7th rounder based on snaps or roster status, they should find a way to trade Will Levis. But I'm more convinced now that it needs to happen sooner rather than later because they're never going to get the best version out of Will Levis in his current state, and he deserves a fresh opportunity as well because the Titans have clearly moved on. But with that being said, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball where there's a lot of interesting things to talk about from Titans OTAs. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I am looking at the finals, and I'm having a hard time not believing the Thunder are just going to wreck the Indiana Pacers. I'm going to be betting Thunder money line, Thunder spread, SGA points. Probably go with some Halliburton assists in there as well. But hey, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. More reaction from Tennessee Titans OTAs because there was so much stuff that happened on Wednesday. We couldn't possibly get to it all on yesterday's show. Now, I want to give a shout out to my YouTube folks. I'm so sorry, guys. There was a technical problem. The show went out 3 hours late. I had people going crazy in the comments before the show even dropped. My mistake. Listen, I got vacation on the mind, guys. You guys know how it goes when you're getting close to vacation. Things happen like that. So my apologies. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with me. Podcast folks, they didn't even notice. So you guys don't pay attention to anything I just said. But with that being said, we got to move to defense. Yesterday, we talked Cam. We talked the offensive skill players. We talked players who weren't there. And again, I'll update more of that at the end of this segment. But we got to talk about everything else. Special teams, defense. So, number one, I want to start with that inside linebacker spot. Okay, next to Cody Barton, who's going to win that spot? Who has a leg up? Denard Wilson, the Tennessee Titans defensive coordinator, said that it is, quote, extremely wide open. Extremely wide open. And remember, we're looking at Otis Reese going into year 3. We are looking at James Williams and Cedric Gray, both who were drafted last year, going into year 2. We're looking at Ojri Anthony. Curtis Jacobs is another guy who was an undrafted free agent a couple of years ago who could have something to say. David Benda from Texas, the undrafted free agent from this year, could have something to say. But again, for me, I'm really focused on those 3 guys. Otis Reese, Cedric Gray, and James Williams. Now, Brian Callahan went out of his way to give praise to James Williams and Cedric Gray and said that they've been doing well. But I got to go to my guy Buck Rising, who said in his takeaways that he would quote, I'd favor Otis Reese starting out. Now, he said, I'd favor Otis Reese in the spot next to Cody Barton starting out. It was a little bit longer, but for what's important, I'd favor Otis Reese starting out. Now, here's the thing. Titans beat reporters are not allowed to give away lineup information, although one beat reporter did say that Corey Levin was getting first-team reps at center. I don't think the Titans want people saying that, but I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to put them on blast. Keep saying it. All these other teams around the NFL, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Browns, the Bengals, the Giants, the Bears, so many teams out there, beat reporters are allowed to film 11 on 11, film 7 on 7, give lineup information, and the Titans don't allow it. They're the Nashville Mafia. No one knows why. A lot of you guys get in my comments and tell me you don't want to know that information. You think that it helps the Titans win games, and it's just laughable that the Philadelphia Eagles allow it, and they're one of the most successful franchises of the last 10 years. But the Titans need to continue to hide information from their customers because it helps them with a competitive advantage. It's silliness. It doesn't help you at all. It just ruins the experience of your fans at times. But that's a different soapbox for a different day that I've been on plenty of times. But the point is, we don't know who was getting those first-team reps next to Cody Barton. If it's wide open, extremely wide open, and you have a guy like Buck who knows better than to say who's starting, saying, I'd favor Otis Reese. Well, we might be able to connect some dots on that, okay? We might be able to connect some dots there. Now, I'll be honest with you, that's disappointing to me. I don't want Otis Reese to win the spot. Now, if Otis Reese turns into a fantastic player, and that's why he wins the spot, then of course I want Otis Reese to do that. But based on what I see right now and what I think is possible, I would much rather have one of those rookies from last year, Cedric Gray or James Williams, win that spot. There's higher upside there. I think that at the end of the day, Otis Reese is probably just a really good special teams player and maybe not a guy who you would view as a starting linebacker. Good depth player, but a special teams really first player. You need Cedric Gray or James Williams, one of those rookie linebackers who you spent a draft pick on last year. You need one of them to step up. So it is disappointing to hear that Otis Reese should be favored early on, but Cedric Gray had a pass breakup, and James Williams, I thought, was the best of the three last year when you watch the film. So I'm going to remain optimistic that Cedric Gray or James Williams is going to find a way to win that battle. But we might need to look at Otis Reese as the favorite starting out. Going to edge, I just want to spend some time talking about Femi. Freaky Oladipo, the Freak 2.0. I said that on Twitter, and some people got really upset. Look, I'm just playing around, just having some fun. But wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? I am still tempering expectations with Femi. He is a project. He's played 6 or 7 games as an edge rusher. Okay? So I think it's only fair to temper those expectations. But here's what I will say. Boy, he looks the part. He looks like a freak. It is outrageous how jacked he is, how big and thick he is all the way around his build, how freaking violent he is with his movements, and then the energy that he brings just with his personality. 6'3" and some change, 260 pounds. Like, this guy is just a freak-looking dude, like Hercules, Adonis, whatever you want to call it. A Greek god chiseled from stone. Outrageous. Outrageous. And the things that his coaches said, Denard Wilson said he's violent, passionate, played Mike, which is the starting middle linebacker at UCLA, so he's a great communicator because he was the one communicating to the entire defense. He said he wants to be the best version of himself for the team. He's a team-first guy. Denard Wilson sounds like he's really excited, and I thought it was funny, another Buck Rising observation from his takeaways. He said, I don't know why he said this, but sure, he said that Draymond Jones was less physically impressive than he thought he was going to be. I mean, Draymond Jones is like 6'3", 260 to 280, something like that. So I don't know what it was. I saw somebody else say Draymond Jones is a tank, like he's built like a tank. So I don't know how to feel about that. But again, I think that Femi Oladejo's build, his physical traits, and then his personality and how that could help him develop faster, I think there's a good chance that Femi is a starter by the middle of the season. But again, I'm tempering expectations because just because he looks awesome and he's, again, a Greek god built from stone doesn't mean that he's going to come in right away and have good enough technique after not being an edge rusher for most of his college career. But I'm just very excited about Femi and what his development could be going forward, and it sounds like his coaches are excited about him as well. Do want to talk about special teams for a moment. According to TD, the punt returners, they did punt return. It was James Prochet, the veteran wide receiver who was signed in the offseason. Chim Dike, the draft pick out of Florida, who I hope wins the job. Xavier Restrepo, who may need to add value there to make the roster. Jaquan Jackson, who, yikes, really failed his opportunity last year. Mark Perry, who is a DB, who I think is not going to make the roster. And then TJ Sheffield, who is an undrafted free agent wide receiver, who, again, I think is more of a camp body. Get reps in there, keep things balanced, not overwork guys. I think that's the Mark Perry and TJ Sheffield experience. But nonetheless, Prochet could make this roster as a 7th wide receiver if he proves to be the number 1 returner. Chim Dike, it would be massive for the Titans going forward if he could turn into a solid returner. Same with Xavier Restrepo. And then Jaquan Jackson might just be able to save his roster spot if he's able to turn things around, but it's hard to have faith in that happening. So I'm looking at Prochet, DK, and Xavier Restrepo on punt return, adding Tajay Spears into that mix on kick return. Those are the guys who I'm really focused on, and it looks like they're getting some opportunities out of the gate. Do want to mention, according to Paul Kaharski, there was a follow-up here. L'Jarius Sneed, Lloyd Cushenberry, Kevin Zeitler, these guys who we talked about who weren't spotted at OTAs, Tavondre Sweat as well, they were all there. Like, they were in the building. The only player on the 90-man roster who was not in attendance at the building, maybe not on the practice field, maybe not full team, but the only player who was literally not there was Jeffrey Simmons. And I talked about it yesterday. I have faith that Simmons will be ready for the season. I would never question his conditioning or his offseason plan. All I would say is there has been an emphasis on leadership this year. And the fact that there's an emphasis on leadership this year, and not just leading by example, but leading vocally and bringing guys with you. The fact that they have put so much emphasis on that stuff, and Jeffrey Simmons still isn't there after going 3-14, I'm not upset about it. I'm not going to rant and rave about it, but I'm not going to lie either. It is a little bit disappointing. It's just a little disappointing. That's all. But with that being said, you want to know something that isn't disappointing? Cam Ward is using the same virtual reality setup that Jayden Daniels has been using to help quicken, there we go, his development. And my guy Easton Freeze literally got to put the VR headset on and experience it to see what it's like. And he's going to come on the show to break down his experience right now. All right, folks, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On Titans. We've talked about Will Levis's tough start with OTAs. We talked about some of the stuff on the defensive side of the ball. But now I want to cap off, like I said, with a great story from my guy Easton Freeze from A to Z Sports. A little preview of Fire and Ice right here for all you guys as well. But Easton's done a great job, seriously, great job this offseason. One of the rising stars of the offseason, in my opinion, just knocked it out of the park so far. And this article that you wrote about Cam Ward and how they're going to use virtual reality, similar to the Jayden Daniels situation, to kind of speed up his development. Fascinating. You guys should all go check that out. Easton, I guess you got to put the headset on, see what it looks like. What was your biggest takeaway for people from actually doing it yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the very kind words. I appreciate it. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it. I don't know if you or if any of your listeners have ever tried the consumer version of these quarterback simulators, like the Oculus version. Yeah, so I have tried that before. So that was my only frame of reference going in, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be just like that or nothing like that. If you've done that, or if you haven't, go Google like Oculus quarterback simulator and look up pictures. It's the bones of the program are identical to that. So it feels the same. It's like slightly worse graphics versions of Madden, but you are first person. So you're in the helmet of the quarterback. You're not hovering over the play. The difference, obvious. It's not just that they're playing video games and calling it training. That's not what it is. The difference is that this is a really souped up version of that game where everything is customizable. Everything is identical to the Titans playbook and to their opponents' tendencies. And everything is tracked in terms of you record the training session, but also where your head is moving, where your eyes are moving, the timing with which you're getting through the reads. Like all of it is tracked, timed, recorded, and then sent to a report card where you're able to see all of your stats on your training. Which isn't just your general stats, but also all of these plays, the coaching points are plugged in. That's a part of the software, is all of the requirements are the wrong word. The expectations on the plays are plugged in as well. So the program knows that on this play against a cover 3 look, your reads are supposed to go 1 to 2 to 3. And when the nickel corner is showing blitz, you're supposed to go to the hot route. Like all of those things that you'd see on a whiteboard from a coaching point when you're going through the tape of the practice in real life, all of that is baked in. And so you have kind of a virtual coach grading you on those things.
And, you know, I know this is something you point out and people have heard about, but this is something that Jayden Daniels used not only last year, but before that as well, right?
Yes. So he started using it at LSU, and that's where the Titans went and tracked this program down. It's the same software that Jayden Daniels is using. And now I was looking into this to see if anyone else around the league that we know of is using it. The Seahawks have done this for Jalen Milroe this offseason as well, apparently. Somebody reported that last week. I'm assuming it's true. I saw it on Twitter, so it must be true.
Gotta be.
I don't know of anyone else that is using it yet, but I'd imagine it's going to be something that is a pretty common trend, especially for younger guys. Something in talking with Brian Callahan about this is that, he first met with this company in Cincinnati a couple of years ago. And so it's kind of been one of those things where, it's like the traveling trade shows of NFL tech, like it's been around and people have known about it, but it depends on the quarterback that you have, first of all, right? Like he talked about how a lot of the veterans that have been around for a long time don't really see any utility in it, don't like it. Like it's just like, they're allergic to the technological advances a little bit. These younger guys are more familiar with the general gist of VR in the first place. And there's a comfortability factor there. And so Cam was open to it. Cam had spoken with Jayden Daniels in the pre-draft process a decent amount about it. And so that was something that he was interested in. It's something that the Titans were really they began this process in January. And so they were interested in this tech before they knew for sure they were going to be drafting a rookie quarterback. It just kind of accelerated the timeline of them getting this in and getting it set up when they realized that Cam was going to be in the building and that he was interested in using it, but they wanted it already. And so they've been meeting with this company. They flew them in a couple of different times to meet with Titans brass. And I was told they met for like 12 plus hours combined to go through all of the settings and talk about how to plug in different things. The Titans don't have to on their end do any of the software coding. This company handles all of it. So they have a liaison that they're constantly working with to plug in certain things. And so like right now, this time of year, the interface that I was playing around with yesterday is base looks from different teams. But once you get in season, where it becomes even more useful in its customization is that you can plug in your scouting expectations for specific teams to face. So for example, week 1 against the Broncos, you can have your analytical profile of their tendencies and like 37% of the time they're going to be in a cover 2 look, and how often are they running their base defense, what are their exotic blitz packages, what kind of disguise are they going to put on the back end? Are they going to rotate coverage? How are different looks going to shift on the quarterback pre to post snap? And so you can get all of that plugged in there so that you can run simulations of a game before a game. You can also, like, this is kind of a simple utility of it, but for somebody like Cam Ward to be able to run every individual play in the Titans playbook against every different type of coverage, to know what the different looks are and get in your body what that feels like, it's extremely useful. So that's the letterhead utility of this, is being able to like 10x, 20x, infinite x your number of mental reps in a way that you just couldn't do on the practice field alone, where you have to have 10 other guys and some coaches, and you're taking up everybody's time and everybody's tired and it's hot. Like there's a limiting principle there, that VR, where Cam can take this thing home in its carrying case and sit on his couch at night and run a play 40 times if he wants to. Your orders of magnitude are applied to your ability to train.
Yeah, and I think another thing, the Titans defense, they don't do everything that every other defense does. So even if you had, hey guys, let's go out on the field and rep this, like there are just certain things you can't replicate properly. That's a great point. Now I know that a lot of people out there have played like Wii and stuff like that, and even like the Oculus, so the handheld nature, and then you're doing it. But just so it's clear, this is not where Cam is physically throwing. It is truly a mental exercise to go through things.
Right. I mean, you do have a handheld controller and you do throw the ball, but you kind of like just flick your wrist. Like it's not a mechanics tracker in that way. Maybe eventually we get to that point, but no, that's not the
QB5, point. If it's open, you got it. You threw a touchdown, right?
Well, I did, but the caveat, and so that's the flex, right? But the caveat is that 1, it's your form doesn't matter. You just flick your wrist. And 2, as far as I can tell, which I wasn't in there for very long, but as far as I can tell, every time you throw the ball in the general direction of a guy, it's a completion. So like my touchdown was a pass to the tight end running directly up the seam, a seam go into double coverage. It would have been an interception. Like it would have been the worst throw you've ever seen in your life if it was a decision made in a real game. I didn't read anything out. I just panicked and threw the ball to the guy that I saw in the end zone. So that's like, it's not that. And obviously like, that's not cheating in a way, because with somebody that actually knows what they're doing, the quarterback, the coach, when they wouldn't make that mistake, and you'd be able to point to that and say, can't do that in a game. Absolutely not. Like, that's a negative mark, even though you threw a touchdown. So that the last thing that I want to point out, by the way, is when talking to Brian Callahan, he pointed out that this is not, it's obviously designed for quarterbacks first and foremost, but it's not just for quarterbacks. There's utility for other positions that they are working on. And the system has more than enough capability to be customized in this way. They're just having to program it and fine tune it and do all of these things. But pass protection for running backs, it's something that they're going to get the running backs involved in, where they can first person get a feel for blitz pickup and recognition on that front. The offensive lineman, here's another thing. You can customize the traits and tendencies of individual defenders. So if you're playing Myles Garrett that week, you can go to PFF and look at, okay, well, he runs speed to power 37% of the time, and he likes to inside counter. Like, all of his tendencies that we know on paper, you can plug into the program and have virtual Myles Garrett run against you as an offensive lineman, which, by the way, here's one of the few physical things this does do. You've got the two controllers in your hands. There is hand tracking in that way.
Punch,
you can punch, placement, height, width and depth, all of those things you can track in there. And so letting offensive linemen get a feel for the tendencies of certain defensive linemen. You can also, even a skill position player, receiver, can wear this. And if they want to get a feel for, hey, I want to see what a deep crosser against the Broncos cover 3 feels like, you can sit there and have you can virtually run that route and get a feel for how that's going to look as you weave through their coverage. Maybe if you're wanting to find the best way to see where's the soft spot of the zone against this look against the Broncos. Like, all of those things are the future utility of this for more than just the quarterbacks.
Yeah, the capabilities are truly unlimited, but I mean, I guess that's technology these days, but that's awesome, man. Incredible breakdown, great article. If you guys haven't checked out the article, obviously go read it. Easton, if you want to, let them know where they can find it, where they can find your work.
Yeah, A2Zsports.com. The article is called, if I can scroll to the top of my screen here, it is called "The Titans Are Following Game-Changing Virtual Reality Trends in Order to Ensure Cam Ward is Prepped as Possible for His Rookie Season and Beyond." Please do go read it. There's a lot more in there than we were able to cover today. And all my other writings and musings and ramblings over on A2Zsports.com. You can check me out there.
Absolutely. Well, again, Easton, doing a great job this all season. Thanks so much for coming on and breaking that down. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Titans. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland. And again, this was Locked On Titans.